Have you ever heard about adaptation or adaptive capacity? I think most of you probably already know or at least hear about climate change issues. Adaptation and adaptive capacity is often discussed as a human response to changing conditions, not only in the context of climate change, but also in socio-ecological systems resilience. In the report of UN, adaptation is defined as adjustment in a system in response to actual or expected disturbances and their impacts. Adaptive capacity is a similar concept, but this term is more focused on the ability of systems, whether they can adjust to change, moderate potential damages, and take advantage of opportunities for better outcomes. Let me explain with examples in the Korean community forestry of village groves. Hundreds of years ago, Korean villagers planted trees on the seashore or along the riverbank to make village groves. Can you guess the role of these village groves? Yes, these planted trees block strong winds and prevent floods so as to protect villages and villagers' life. Responding to frequent natural disasters such as floods and typhoons, Korean people built village groves by hands of local people and further developed their own rules and regulations to protect and manage village groves. Traditional village groves can be one example of adaptation to expected disturbances. Nowadays, more than 1,000 village groves still remain in South Korea, but many of them are under pressures, destroyed and degraded by recent socioeconomic and ecological changes. Do you think we can say that these villages also have adaptive capacity to deal with current changes and adjust to new circumstances? Although they show high adaptation to their environments in the past, their capacity to adapt to new changes and emerging disturbances varies from village to village and over time. In other words, adaptive capacity of any communities might explain how they can respond to ongoing and emerging disturbances. To increase adaptive capacity, we first need to know about its dimensions or determinants. Scholars in natural resources field suggest 4 critical factors that influence adaptive capacity. First, learning to live with change. Second, creating opportunity for local groups to come together and take action. Third, combining different types of knowledge like traditional or local knowledge and scientific knowledge. And lastly, nurturing biological and cultural diversity. When looking at the case of the Korean village groves through the lens of adaptive capacity, we could find the evidence of learning, such as changed values and perspectives among participants in the recent village groves restoration project. We also found civic traditions of self-organization and in local communities, and diverse knowledge systems, including forestry-related traditional knowledge and Western scientific knowledge. Based on these factors, we can characterize a context-specific adaptive capacity and assume the potential role of this capacity in continuously changing Korean village groves. One thing I'd like to point out that these factors can vary in different villages and communities, indicating that they may have different types or levels of adaptive capacity. Now, you might have some questions about how this capacity or adaptation is related to environmental education. There is extensive knowledge from the field of education regarding development individuals' capacity to learn about and adapt to change. For example, environmental education can help individuals to live with change by learning how to learn and by learning about other adaptation options. Then, how can environmental education program contribute to building adaptive capacity, not just at the individual level, but also social ecological systems level? What role can environmental education play in climate change adaptation and different types of adaptation? I'd like to leave them as discussion questions with some readings that can help you to understand the connections between adaptive capacity or adaptation and environmental education.